I didn't believe the old rules. No whistling after dark, don't answer your name from the tree line, until the ridge started answering back. I'm Wade, 34 from Pike County. Run a sawmill by day and check traps at night. Last October, the coyotes stopped coming. Something else did. On Tuesday, my trail cam sent a picture of my yard at 2:11 a.m. Porch light haloing a figure you'd swear was me. Same Carhartt, same ball cap. The left foot turned in from an old break. It stood at the salt line on my steps, like it didn't know whether to cross. When I stepped outside, nothing. The holler held its breath. I wrote it off as a glitch and went up to check the line. Fog sat in the laurel like wool. Halfway to the top set, I heard my uncle call my name from below. Wade, in the exact tone he uses when he's found a cat in a snare. I yelled back, "I'm up here!" The answer came from above. "Up here!" Half a beat late. It wasn't echo. Sound doesn't bounce in these hills like that. It felt like a second mouth learning my mouth. The flashlight found nothing but wet rhododendron leaves. At the lower bench, I found 3 things that won't fit a sane story. A sprung trap with nothing in it. A single boot print on top of the sprung jaws, as if something had stepped there on purpose. And a neat pile of river stones where there isn't. A river within a mile. On the top stone, a thumbnail had scraped a little smile. I kicked it apart and muttered a granddad prayer at the trees. That night, I left the porch light on and the radio low. Around 2, a whistle came from the timber. 3, notes the boys use for, "You there?" I whistled back without thinking. The answer came from 2 places at once, high right and low left. Same 3 notes, but wrong at the edges, like whistling through a split lip. The radio clicked, and my uncle's voice came through on a channel we don't use, dry and flat. "Don't." Then breathing, too close to the mic. We brought in a deputy because if it's people, that's one problem. If it's catamounts or feral dogs, it's another. He paced the fence line, asked about feuds, nodded at my salt threshold. "Grandma stuff can't hurt," and left. That Friday, the gate latch lifted. The cowbell on it rang once, sharp. By the time I hit the porch, whatever had done it had closed it again. Pressed into the salt on the top step were 2 heel prints shaped exactly like mine, worn on the outer edge, and between them, 5 small bare toes turned backward. I swept the step and wrote my grandmother's name in the salt, because she never walked backward a day in her life. At 3, I woke to my name spoken soft as a bedtime story from right beside the bed. I was alone. The dogs still hadn't barked. Across the room, the blinds breathed, as if a Pam rested on them from outside. "Who's there?" I said, stupid as anyone. A voice said my name back, trying the syllables like a new shoe, then gave. A quick, pleased laugh. I went to the door with the shotgun and didn't open it. I asked what we used to call our first coon dog. My uncle would never forget. The voice answered, "Blue," which is close. The dog was Bo. The knob twitched like a curious animal, then stilled. The porch board sighed as if a knee unbent, and the gate bell rang once on its way out. Dawn finally pushed me to sleep. By afternoon, the deputy had bigger fish. Folks at Dollar General told me not to whistle after dark like I was 5. A lady by the ice cooler, eyes on nothing, said, "If it borrows your name, don't you answer." That night I didn't whistle. I said the Lord's Prayer into my pillow like caulk. The trail cam sent one last photo at 2:11 a.m. My door, my step, the salt line with a clean foot-shaped gap in and back out without a grain smeared. Here's what I know about the Appalachians. Some noises belong to the ridge, and some don't. You learn the difference the night the ridge uses your voice. I stayed with Mom a week. On night 3, her doorbell rang once with nobody there, and her little mutt slept through it, kicking in a dream. I moved back home with a board across the door, and the bell tied shut. I don't whistle. If the tree line calls me, I let it talk to itself. Whatever lives up there still likes 2:11 a.m. My camera batteries die at 2:10 and come back at 2:12, full bars, like the ridge needed to draw a breath. On Sunday, I hiked the old logging road to the fire tower, hoping for reception and common sense. I met Mr. Penland from 2 ridges over, carrying a salt block for deer. He wouldn't step off the road to talk, just said, "Don't whistle, Wade," like he'd heard me do it. At the tower, the wind went dead all at once, the way a house goes quiet when a refrigerator kicks off. From the ladder cage, I could see my porch like a tiny tooth. Something darker than shadow leaned there a second, then was gone. The text I tried to send my uncle timestamped itself for tomorrow. Back home, the cowbell string was retied in a knot I don't use, neat as a shoelace, from hands that wanted to learn. I thought the Appalachian Trail would quiet the noise in my head. 3 weeks with a pack and a stove. That was the plan. I'm John, 30, section hiker. The stretch I picked cut through a dead coal town, then into national forest where the IFE map turns into green suggestion. At the last gas station, a cashier gave me 2 rules. Don't shortcut switchbacks, and don't follow lights off trail. I laughed. Day 2, rain. I reached an old CCC shelter by dark. 3 walls, a mouse chewed. Register. The newest entry read, 2 ahead. See you at Laurel Gap. M. I hadn't seen a soul all day. I wrote my name, ate a wet dinner, and slept to patient tapping. Somewhere a dog barked twice and didn't bark again. Around midnight, light moved along the rafters. Slow, steady, like a headlamp pacing. "Hey there!" I called. It stopped. Something knuckled the floor just out of sight. When I rolled over, a small circle of sticks had been laid inside the lip of the shelter while I slept. In the middle sat a torn scrap from the register with my name and the words, 2 ahead. A mile past the shelter stood cairns, marching 20 yards off the trail, following the ridge like fence posts. Every 10th one had a strip of shirt tied to a twig. No wind, yet the cloth turned. Then a stairway. 6 concrete steps greening back into the hill, the porch outliving the house. On the 3rd step, someone had carved 2 letters, M+. The grit on my fingertip said fresh. By noon, I saw a man half behind a red maple, blaze orange hat, grin that wanted me to trust him. "All good?" I asked. He nodded without stepping out. "You seen the others? 2 ahead." My tongue went dry. "Haven't seen anyone," I lied. He pointed at my pack. "Leave the heavy. They don't like heavy." He slid behind the trunk and wasn't on either side. I hustled miles. Poles clicked behind me that weren't mine. Laurel Gap Shelter looked west into a lean wind. The register's first page read, 2 ahead, big, and under it in smaller hand, "Don't follow lights." At full dark, a blue-white glow floated ankle-high along the trail and began to circle the shelter, slow as a clock hand. I didn't answer the 3-note whistle that followed. The light hovered over the 3rd mossy stair and pinched out. I moved at first light. In a cove where the air smelled like pennies, I found prints in the mud. Vibram tread, and a smaller bare foot beside it, then both sets deepening like the earth weighed more there. Across the trail, white string was tied from tree to tree at chest. Height, 3 bottle caps hanging in the middle. No breeze, but they trembled. I lifted the string with my poles and ducked under. The caps shivered like a hand had just touched them. That first night, I kept telling myself it was prank stuff. Scouts, locals, anything but what my gut was selling. Something padded past the shelter and paused where my boots sat. I slid them deeper under my pack and listened to the silence the way you listen to a cracked tooth. In daylight, the cairns were worse because they were careful. Somebody had hauled those stones. Every 10th pile faced the same way. A flat rock turned like a compass needle. I broke one with my pole. 10 minutes later, another stood in my periphery, neat as a stack of plates. Back at Laurel Gap, I read older pages, trail jokes, blisters, and then last spring, tight notes, heard whistling. Saw blue light. Thought phone, not. The entry signed M came up again and again. When dark fell, the glow drifted up the trail like a bead on string. It didn't bob like a person's light. It flowed. It paused at the edge of the pad. The register's ink looked wet under it, though I hadn't written anything. At the next, road crossing a pickup idled, window down, orange hat on the dash. The driver wore the grin from the red maple. "They don't like heavy," he said, eyes on the tree line behind me. The passenger seat held only a child's backpack with a cartoon fox. I walked past without answering. He didn't move the truck. He only watched the woods like he was waiting for someone shorter. I left the trail at the highway and paid too much to a man in a minivan who smelled like coffee. At home, I checked my photo of the first register. My entry was there, faint under it, as if written and erased and written again. Another line. 2 ahead, M. And below that, in a thin, careful hand I didn't recognize, my full name and tomorrow's date. On my last mile before the highway, a creek crossed. The trail in black water. A loop of monofilament floated in the shallows, tied back to a bent sapling pinned under a rock. Snare set for something knee-high. On the bank, the heelless prints appeared again, pointed toward town like a child trying to remember how to walk. When I straightened up, the bottle caps behind me ticked twice, neat as a metronome. I didn't look back. People say the Appalachians are haunted. Maybe. I think they're crowded by the living, the lost, and whatever walks between. If you hike that stretch and see ankle-high light, don't follow. If someone says 2 ahead, don't answer. Leave the heavy. Keep your name in your mouth until daylight. I work nights on a road crew that clears rockfall after storms along a 2-lane through national forest. Work you only notice when it isn't done. My name's Caleb. I don't scare easy. I grew up here. The mountain still taught me a lesson last spring. After a squall line, the county called. Tree across mile 19. I took the flatbed. My partner Theo rode shotgun. The radio was dead until we dropped into the hollow. Then a voice came through like prayer. "Help me." No call sign, not our channel. Just those 2 words and a sizzle. Lightning stitched the ridge. We rounded the bend, found a red oak down, set cones, fired the saw. Halfway through the cut, the radio spoke again in a child's sing-song. Help me, Caleb. My name, Theo, stared over the saw like he'd swallowed a fly. I hadn't touched the mic. We rolled the trunk and were packing when a car eased up with hazards on. A woman in her 50s leaned out, rain in her hair. "Y'all seen a runner?" she asked. "My boy took the Fire Tower Road before the storm." It had been 3 hours. We aren't search and rescue, but the sheriff was tied up, so we told her to sit tight and we'd drive up, honk, look. The gate chain was loose enough to nose through. We climbed, tires throwing gravel. A mile up, a headlamp sat on a stump, shining weakly into brush. It had been set there. The woods were wrung out quiet. "Jackson!" I yelled. She'd given us his name. The radio answered in his mother's voice. Jackson. Soft as a bedtime call. At the second switchback, something slapped the truck bed. I got out with the maglite. On the slope hung a gate of white string tied tree to tree. 3 beer caps dangling in the middle. No wind, but they ticked. Beneath the string, a fresh bare footprint faced upslope, heel missing like a shoe without one. On a sapling, someone had tied a loop of our own caution tape. Knotted wrong, left-handed. We reached the fire tower spur. The lowest landing held a folded blue windbreaker with a key fob on top. The fob chirped, and a car down the mountain answered, small and sad. "This is Jackson's," Theo said. The radio hissed, then played breath and gravel like the mic lay against the road. "Help me," the voice said again, not pleading, inviting. Between horn blasts, I called his name, and the name came back from 2 directions. From the stairs I saw little blue-white lights moving low through the trees. They flowed toward the service road and stopped where the beer cap gate hung. There they went out, one by one, like candles pinched by a careful hand. "Let's go," Theo said, and meant down. Halfway to the first switchback, our beam caught bare shin at the ditch. Jackson stood there, shoes in one hand, socks in the other, feet black with mud above the arch where a heel should be. He didn't blink at the light. "Buddy," I said, "you're okay." He smiled too wide. Then he stepped off uphill between rhododendrons. The brush didn't move around him. It moved after. I pushed in with the light. The beam swung through laurel and found a clearing packed flat like a long-used floor. In the center lay a circle of stones, and inside it a wet patch the rain wouldn't touch. Something bumped my boot, polite as a cat. I lowered the beam to a child's backpack with a cartoon fox, its zipper line disappearing straight into the earth. "Caleb," the radio said in my mother's voice, "and she's been dead 7 years." I dropped it. The speaker kept talking from the mud. Theo saved us by being plain. He threw the windbreaker into the dark patch. "Come on, son," he said, as if there were a sun. The wet rippled. The jacket sank an inch and stopped. Every beer cap we'd passed ticked once, a rain of faint metal. We stepped backward the way you step from a dog you don't want to startle, and kept stepping until the road held us. Down at the gate, the woman grabbed the jacket and made a sound I won't describe. The proper search at daylight found the stump with the lamp and the tower with broken windows. It did not find Jackson. The report says, presumed hypothermia. Paper stays tidy here. At the shop, we pulled the radio fuse. It hissed anyway at 2:11 a.m., breath only. I still clear trees on mile 19. Sometimes the caps tick in full sun. Sometimes the ditch keeps a print with no heel that fills with water, but never overflows. A week later, we were back for a different storm. Same mile. The string gate had been retied with fresh white line, knots neat now, like a left-hand learning. In daylight, I noticed bottle caps from 3 different brands, each pierced twice and hung in 3s. Someone had rules. Down in the ditch, a coil of monofilament ran from a bent sapling into a hole in the bank. Theo cut it. The line pulled against the blade like a fish that didn't want to surface. That night, the radio stayed quiet until the Yestad's minute it didn't. "Help me," it said. The voice not a voice, only breath shaped like words. We let it talk to itself and kept the saws running loud. Something up here loves invitations and hates to carry weight. If it calls you by name, don't answer. If it says help me, remember who taught you your voice and keep it.